MCU launched in 2008 with the first Iron Man and the first and only Incredible Hulk movie. Both movies were actually pretty successful, and of course, this launched what would become the biggest movie franchise of all time. And yeah, when they first came out, again, they were both pretty successful, made a lot of money, and both movies actually had a pretty good critical response. More so the first Iron Man, which to this day, which is considered one of, if not the best MCU movie like ever made. I'm more of a Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 guy myself, or even the first one I think is better than the first Iron Man. But yeah, it's definitely up there, at least in the top 5, definitely. The Incredible Hulk, on the other hand, people either forget the movie happened. I mean, they changed the actor after like the first movie, and the Hulk himself is designed differently nowadays. But also, the people who do actually remember the movie, they tend to look back on it in like a negative light. Like some people just straight up don't like the movie, which I personally disagree. I mean, yeah, I loved it a lot when I was a little 9-year-old Zach, because all I wanted to see was just the Hulk tearing shit up, and that's exactly what I got, the Hulk tearing shit up. But I would continue to watch it again, like once or twice every year or so, ever since then. I mean, yeah, I don't love it anymore, but now my opinion is still, to this day, like, I think that's pretty good. It's not great. Definitely could be a better movie, but it's not terrible. I wouldn't even say it's just average. I think it's slightly above average, actually. Again, I think it's pretty good. That's basically going to be my goal for this video. Trying to explain why I think the movie's actually pretty good, but also digging into it and understanding why people tend not to like it. Even people like Edward Norton, who, yeah, even Edward Norton, the Hulk himself, was not a fan of how the movie actually turned out, and refused to promote it in the months leading up to its actual release. Now, some say this was the reason he decided not to come back. Others say it's because he just wanted more variety in movie roles and he didn't want to be held down by one character. Neither one would surprise me, but look, come on, he's expressed his distaste for the MCU, even more recent like interviews and award speeches. But I think he's just really harsh in the movie because he had a lot of faith in the movie. Apparently was a Hulk fan himself, and he even rewrote parts of the movie himself and was credited under a different writer name. Yeah, that actually happened. So I guess I can understand why the movie didn't turn out as good as he wanted it to, but I wouldn't call the movie bad at all. And here's going to be my video explaining why, but also explaining why others do not think so. Let us begin. We'll start off with part of the movie that pretty much everybody already praises, that being the opening credits, which smartfully do a brief summarization of the Hulk's origin story, pretty much undoing one of the faults of the last Hulk movie by Ang Lee, that being that get the origin story plot bullshit out of the way faster so we can get to the fucking Hulk faster. Like seriously, the Ang Lee version took like 40 minutes to get there. This one doesn't in half that time. It also lets everybody who hasn't seen the old movie or like doesn't know who the Hulk is in the know pretty quickly without having to like bore them with origin story bullshit. Like you can watch this without having seen any other Hulk thing. You can still get a pretty good idea of what happened. That Bruce Banner was the scientist who was making a breakthrough. He tested that breakthrough on himself, then shit hit the fan, and that man became a big, enormous green rage man. For the first 20 minutes or so, I honestly think the first 20 minutes are legitimately great. Like it's all almost entirely visual storytelling. It shows that Bruce Banner lives in like South America, I think it is. Yeah, somewhere in South America. Obviously, it's a hiding spot. He's learning all these meditation and relaxation techniques because obviously, as we all know, if Bruce Banner gets even the least bit angry, he hulks out. The movie also makes the brilliant decision of having him wear like this wristwatch that keeps track of his heart rate, which also serves as like kind of like a timer for a bomb with the explosion, of course, being the Hulk. And he does also obviously have to adapt to his new surroundings, like learning Portuguese and working at a soda factory because that's one job he could be good at and could probably make a decent living on while he's there. We even get a nice cameo from Bill Bixby and Grover, so yeah, that's nice. Plus, the movie keeps you under a lot of like kind of like suspense and intrigue throughout this first 20 minutes because it also establishes that if Bruce Banner fucks up even a little bit, like if he gets too stressed out, like basically if he's not careful, he could Hulk out at any moment and could possibly hurt or kill any of the people around him in the area he lives in, at least. So we're already under suspense and a little bit of excitement as we're waiting patiently for this damn Hulk to finally show up. But we're still intrigued in Bruce Banner himself as a character because like the movie also does a good job making apparent that he's probably the most stressed out and honestly lonely and depressed guy in the world, but he's still smart as hell and works his ass off to find a fucking cure or at least a suppressant for this Hulk so we can go back to a normal life, or at the very least keep the Hulk out of the military's hands because, well, as it's also pretty much established, like later in the movie, the military wants the Hulk, not because he's a danger, but because they want to use him as a weapon. Edward Norton is great in this first 20 minutes too. I mean, he has barely any dialogue, and he gets all that across with just like the expressions on his face, or like his little mannerisms. Like this part where he thinks he finally found a cure for the Hulk, and he tests it on his blood, but then his blood cells, after going back to normal, instantly go back to being big and green and, you know, Hulk blood. And just that little moment where he just says, "Damn it." It's just so subtle, but it's also like so like real. Like you can see all the frustration and sadness and annoyance in his voice and his mannerisms with just that little moment. It's great. And then of course things really go south in the factory when he cuts himself, and then he lets just a tiny little drop of blood loose. And obviously, letting your blood end up in a soda bottle in a soda factory, of course, is already bad, because you don't want people drinking that shit. It's nasty. But it's gamma radiated Hulk blood, so it's way worse. And of course, not only could somebody get sick from that, but also that could give our magnificent mustache boy, General Thunderbolt Ross, just even a little whiff of where Bruce is, and have him send a fucking strike team over there like a snap. And spoilers, that's exactly what happens. Stan Lee takes a little sip of that soda, and presumably he's unaffected by it, because, well, he is a Watcher informant officially now, and he is fucking Stan Lee. But the General instantly assumes, oh shit, this is Bruce's blood. It's blood. It has gamma radiation inside of it. That is Bruce Banner, and he is. Where is he? Where did they make the alcohol bottle? Where they make those soda bottles? South America. All right, get a strike team together. Let's go. And then this is where we're introduced to not just General Ross, but also Emil Blonsky, our second villain in the movie. And he's pretty well set up here. At his first line of dialogue is asking if Bruce Banner is a fighter. Then General Ross is like, "Do not ask if he's a fighter. Do not see if he's a fighter. We just want to catch him like that." Because General Ross knows that if you try fucking with Bruce, he's gonna turn into the Hulk. But Emil Blonsky doesn't know that, and he's just itching for some action, man. Even though there's not like a whole lot of depth to them in the script, I do like the performances, at least, of General Ross and Emil Blonsky. They both add a lot to their characters, even though the script doesn't really add that much. General Ross in particular, I like the way he says certain lines like this.
That is the target! Use every strength you've got! Do it now!
And this.
Where are the 50 cals? Move your asses!
And of course, he has the most amazing mustache on the planet. I mean, it could possibly rival Sam Elliott's, but I don't think anybody could, but it comes close to. It comes close. In Emil Blonsky, Tim Roth just plays him as like this testosterone-filled, overly confident, cocky asshole who just really wants to kick some guy's ass, especially the Hulks. But we'll get into that a little more later. First, let's get back to the actual story of the movie. Let's get to the scene where the Hulk actually shows up now. So after a pretty alright chase scene through South America and back to that soda factory Bruce works at, the strike team chases Bruce to the soda factory. And Bruce is also chased by these random assholes who are clearly just in the movie just so Bruce can have something to set him off at first. And that they do, because they end up catching Bruce in the factory and start basically beating him up. And Bruce just fucking begs, he implores these guys, do not beat me up. Not because I want to be beat up, but because it's for your safety. Don't fucking do this. But of course, they're just like, fuck this guy, he's just being a wimp. And then they proceed to beat him up even more. And then that ticking time bomb that is his heart rate goes up to 200, and then after a really fucking awesome ass shot of Bruce's eyes going green, we, of course, the entire audience gets super excited, and then we finally get the Hulk. But we don't actually see him at first. He's just covered by shadows or smoke or whatever in this factory, and he, of course, basically murders those random assaulters. And then it's just like a classic, solid monster movie scene of those soldiers looking for the Hulk in this big spooky factory while the Hulk is running around tearing shit up, and the echoes of his roaring can be heard by these soldiers as they're looking around for him in this big place. It's, like I said, it's classic, solid monster movie stuff here. We even get some moments of subtle comedy sprinkled throughout, like this moment here. Only to then be followed up by one of the most chilling moments in the whole movie. Yeah, I'd leave him alone at that point. And then finally, when all the rampaging is done and the spooky monster moviness is almost over, the Hulk is about to leave the place, but then one overly confident Emil Blonsky grabs his gun and fucking fires at the Hulk. Like, that's gonna do anything. Like, all the other shots, yeah, those guys were just idiots. They didn't know how to actually shoot him. This time, it's gonna fucking do something. Obviously it doesn't, and all it does is just make the Hulk pissed off, and then Hulk is all like, "Holy shitty McBitch titty." And this brings me to one of the best aspects of the whole movie, which I think everybody else agrees with, and that's the Hulk himself. Obviously the action scenes are really amazing. The CGI is pretty good for 2008, and then they do a good job showing off the Hulk's strength in these action scenes. Like any other movie would just have him like lift up like a big object or a big building or something. This movie shows off his strength like this. Yeah, the action scenes are very powerful and get really creative with it, and that's one of the things I love about the action in this movie. It's some of the best stuff in the MCU, if I'm being completely honest here. I mean, they get the basics of the Hulk's character down, like that he's angry 24/7 and that he's always rampaging around against the military. But it's also shown that like his rampage is really an act of self-defense, and that he doesn't really like actually like want to fight these guys. He just kind of he's just trying to defend himself, man. He just wants to be left alone. But also he does get a little too into defending himself. Like I like the moments when he starts improvising and gets creative with how he fights off the military. Like when he uses these two big chunks of metal as like shields against the military, but also as melee weapons when he gets another fight with Emil Blonsky, or in the big fight with Abomination at the end of the movie when he just smashes a police car in half and he uses the two halves as boxing gloves. That shit is awesome. So he just wants to be left alone. He's acting out self-defense, but he has a little too much fun defending himself. Basically, that's the Hulk in this movie. I also really like the scene in the cave because it's like one of the few scenes in the movie where the Hulk isn't just there to be a special effect for the action scenes. Like he's there as a character. We're seeing him do stuff that he does when he's not rampaging around or fighting off the military. They also give him like really good body language too. Like that, like in the fight with Abomination, whenever the Abomination shows up again, and the Hulk just has like this really annoyed sigh and rolls his eyes. Or in the cave scene when he bumps his head in the ceiling of the cave and he gets annoyed and he just stands there like this, holding his head in pain. Like they really knew how to portray the Hulk in this movie. The Hulk actually has a personality despite having like three quick lines of dialogue. That's one of the things I think this movie could have used more of. It's more of the Hulk just being the Hulk, not like just fighting dudes, but like just being himself. Like what does the Hulk usually do when he's not fighting people or returning back into Bruce Banner? Not that the scenes with where it's just Bruce Banner and Betty, or Bruce Banner and these people and whatever he's doing, that like those scenes are pretty solid. I think the actors do add a lot to these characters, despite the script not really having much there. I think the best scene with them though is in that pizza restaurant where they're seeing each other for the first time in fucking years, and I like the way the movie portrays it too. Like as soon as Bruce Banner slips up and lets Betty see him, she like completely tunes out everything happening around her. Like everything around her goes silent as all her focus is just purely on Bruce. She chases him out of the restaurant, and later on we see Bruce is in the rain, and then Betty finds him again in the rain, and then she demands that she helps him out because she's like, that's her old boyfriend. She misses that guy, and it just feels really good because up until that point, Bruce has been all by himself for most movie. I mean, he had some help from Mr. Blue, but Mr. Blue is just his friend online. He didn't actually like know him in person. Betty though, like there's an actually other human being there, a familiar human being who he loves and actually brings him comfort, is there demanding she help him, and he's just like, you know what, I'm gonna accept this. I'll let her help me out because my life fucking sucks right now. I need something happy happening right now. So yeah, it feels pretty good whenever this scene happens and you finally see Bruce get the help he needs. I also like that we learn more about Bruce and the Hulk through Betty's eyes as well. Just see what an outsider would think of all this happening. And they go a little in depth with the Hulk and Bruce as characters a bit when they talk about what Bruce experiences as the Hulk and what he experiences after and as he's turning into the Hulk during that car ride. There's a little bit of depth there, but not a whole lot. Not as much as I would like, at least. Like I said, it's pretty solid character work, but it's not great or anything like it's nothing like I can't believe I'm saying this, but it's not like the Ang Lee Hulk where they really did delve deep into exploring the character. Maybe a little too much in that movie. This movie kind of went the other extreme after the failure of the Ang Lee Hulk, but I'll get into that later. Basically, the characters here are solid. You're not gonna get choked up or get emotional for these characters, but you do care about wanting to see them make it out okay in the end at the very least. I think I think that problem is a little bit worse with the villains though. Like I said, I do like the villains for the most part, but again, because of what the actors bring to them, not because I actually think they're very complex characters or anything, because they're not really. Thunderbolt Ross probably has the biggest character arc when it comes to the two villains. I mean, he goes like most of the movie, just being like, I want to catch this Hulk and I want to turn him into a weapon. Like, I'm all about that. Then by the end, he realizes how much of a fuck up he is, especially after the Hulk. Especially after that great scene, that great moment where the Hulk just kicks the Abomination at him, like, here's your, I think this is yours. And he just has that look on his face of like, fuck, what did I do? And then by the end of the movie, he's drinking his problems away because he's like, fuck, I caused all this shit. This is all my fault. If I just left Bruce alone, or at least help Bruce find a cure for this thing, things wouldn't have gone so south. Tim Roth as the Abomination, I think, is one of the most underrated villains in the MCU, and I'm so glad he is coming back for She-Hulk. Like I said, the script-wise, he's very one or two-dimensional. Like, there's not much to him. But Tim Roth's performance somehow it just elevates the character for me. He's this testosterone-filled, overly confident, cocky asshole who's pretty much only a soldier for the action of it. And whenever he sees how much power the Hulk has, he's just like, fuck, I want some of that power. I want some of that. I want to feel like a fucking god. So when he finally becomes that god, when he finally becomes the Abomination, the first thing he does, he just goes on a random ass rampage through the city. Like, again, this also shows how different he is from the Hulk. The Hulk, he only goes on a rampage because, well, he just became the Hulk. He doesn't know what the fuck is going on. He doesn't know where he is. But the Hulk does manage to calm down after a while. He only continues to rampage because the military keeps getting on his ass. The Abomination, though, like I said, the Hulk, it's self-defense. The Abomination, it's straight up actual, like, assault. Like, he is just attacking people because he likes it. He thinks it's fun. A good way the movie shows us is that shot where he kicks that taxi up above his head and lifts it up, and he's like, "Give me a real fight." And he's just standing there, like, all posing like an actual, like, Greek god statue, basically, because that's how he feels at that moment. It's like a drug for him, basically. It's like a high. I also like the little, like, the competitive relationship he has with the Hulk, because at first the Hulk is like, oh, fuck this. At first the Hulk is clearly very annoyed by this guy, especially when he shoots him in the face and he just says, fuck you, and throws a forklift at him like a softball. And then the second fight with them, Emil Blonsky is a little hyped up on super soldier serum, so he has more of a chance against the Hulk here. And the Hulk, he's annoyed at first, but he's like, okay. But then he's like, okay, bring it on, asshole. And he starts trying to hit him with those fucking big chunks of metal. And Emil Blonsky, he's faster and stronger this time slightly, so he's able to actually dodge that shit. And then he becomes the Abomination. Finally, the Hulk was like, okay, I gotta legitimately take this guy down. Like, I need to actually try this time. That's another aspect of the movie where I feel like if the movie had more of that going on, the movie could have been great. Like, not just pretty good, great, if it had more of that. The best written and best acted character in the movie, though, is definitely Tim Blake Nelson as Mr. Blue, aka Samuel Stearns, aka would later become the leader. His acting is just so over the top and scenery chewing, but like not to the point where it like takes you out of the movie, to the point where it's like the movie gets like a sudden burst of life that I guess it didn't quite have up until that point. And the way he's written is so brilliant because like they make it very. In just his first scene, we get that he's got kind of like this mad scientist vibe going on, where he like has like very little empathy for people, and like he only sees people really as like future experiments to him. I especially like this line right here.
If we induce me and it fails, this will be very dangerous for you.
Look, I've always been more curious than cautious, and that served me pretty well. So, are we gonna do this?
And that pretty much sums up the guy's entire character, honestly. It's especially made clear what kind of a person he is whenever he first sees the Hulk transform, and then while Betty's sitting over the Hulk on that table trying to calm him down and get him to become Bruce Banner again. Well, fucking Samuel Stearns over here is just looking down with like amazement, like, oh my god, this is beautiful. Look what I helped create just now. And in the very next scene, when they're trying to talk about how they could possibly cure the Hulk, because what they did in there, they only like suppressed the Hulk, but they haven't quite cured him yet. Instead, he's all about like, dude, do you see the potential of this? That was amazing. That was exciting, dude. He doesn't really care about Bruce or anything. He just thinks the Hulk is fucking cool. He's like us. We just want to see the Hulk tear shit up. God, we're heartless, aren't we? And then it kind of plays into his eventual like partnership with Emil Blonsky, aka the Abomination. And it's like we could see like the prelude to the relationship in the comics, where like the leader is kind of like the mastermind behind the Abomination's destruction. Basically, it kind of harkens back to that a little bit, which I really like. Plus it plants the seeds for them to eventually have that relationship in a potential sequel, which of course obviously never happened. A scene that really gets me excited, but also really, really sad, is the part where he gets hit in the head by the Abomination, and then a little bit of Bruce's blood drips into the scar left in his head and starts to make his brain all big like the leader. It's like, dude, you had all the perfect setup for him to eventually become one of the Hulk's biggest enemies, and they did nothing with it. Nothing with it. Come on, it's been 12 years, Marvel. Follow up on that, please. Abomination is coming back in She-Hulk. You can't do the same thing with the leader? You better do the same thing. They probably are. They probably are playing something. Honestly. Knowing Kevin Feige is just being way too secretive about it. It's kind of weird about the MCU. They reveal everything they're going to do, but at the same time, they reveal nothing about what they're going to do. If that makes any sense at all. So yeah, the characters are solid enough. The action scenes are fucking awesome. The Hulk is really cool. Why didn't people like this movie that much? Well, as I've been kind of hinting at, or very heavily implying throughout the video, the script just doesn't set the bar high enough. The actual character analysis of the Hulk himself is there, but not enough. The Hulk himself is there, but not enough. This movie just does everything at like a very basic, surface level way. I guess after the really weird out there art house-ness of the Ang Lee version, which turned a lot of people off. I mean, granted, that movie has its fans, which I understand completely. I mean, I like parts of that movie myself, but like a lot of fans didn't see it that way. So for this movie, they decided to go the other extreme and just have it be a basic, fun popcorn blockbuster movie. When really it could have been more. It could have been a bit more than that. I'm not saying go the Ang Lee route, make it a fucking art house movie. At least make something more interesting. Now I think somewhere in between this movie and the Ang Lee version, there exists a perfect Hulk movie, one that has the artistry and character depth of the Ang Lee version, but also the fun, actiony blockbuster vibe that the new one has. Because the core of the Hulk's character is the really fucked up relationship between Bruce Banner and the Hulk. Like it's a very Jekyll and Hyde story, that one. And this movie like barely ever touches on it, really. They just make it kind of like a basic monster action movie, which is, to be fair, elevated a little bit by the actors. I mean, yeah, some of the other MCU movies don't set the bar quite that high either. Like I think the Ant-Man movies are just okay. But those movies at least do have more entertaining characters in them. Even though, yeah, I like the characters in this movie. There's only like one that I actually really remember a lot. Whereas in the Ant-Man movies, you remember Scott Lang, you remember Hank Pym, you remember Hope a little. Yeah, I think that's pretty much like the gist of why people don't like this movie. It's just not very memorable to them. Now I remember a good amount of moments, like specifically the action scenes, the Hulk himself and whatnot. But like, yeah. That stuff's not in the movie that much. It's mostly the human stuff, which, while not bad, it's not super memorable for a lot of people. One of my friends even told me that he thinks this movie's boring, and I'm like, really? The Ang Lee Hulk is not boring? But like, it is. But this one, maybe less boring, but it's still kind of boring to him at least. Yeah, I can kind of see that. Yeah. Let's be honest though. In terms of live action, this is the best Hulk movie we have right now. And like I said, I think it's pretty good. I'm gonna continue to watch it like once or twice every year or so because it entertains me at least. Though if you count animation, obviously Planet Hulk all the way, that's the best one. Or even Hulk versus Wolverine, though that's more of a Wolverine movie than it is a Hulk movie. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my incredibly unique and hot take opinion of it's pretty good of the Incredible Hulk. And yeah, that's gonna wrap it up. I've been your host, Super Zach Thunder, and I will see you all next week. This time I will have an opinion that's actually more thoughtful than just it's pretty good. See you guys next week.